Okay, we live. Yeah, we live. Okay. Beast of Brussels. You talking about the Brussels? Why do these so-called elites claim they are above karma simply because they tell you symbolically what they are doing? Because it's a free will universe. If there was no free will, then there would be no need for judgment. Okay, it's a free will universe. You get to make your own. The one thing, the rule that you have to understand is that no matter what you see people doing, no one can violate your free will. You always have to have a choice. You always have a choice. And you always have to keep that in the back of your mind. And you got to understand, well, what constitutes a choice? What constitutes a choice is how you choose to think. Because everything begins with how you think. But it's a free will universe. From the archons. Archons is like, what are you talking about? The archons? You talking about ain't that come out of a video game? Warhammer or something like that? The universe is mental. Yes, it is. Oh man, this is nice, man. I'm liking this. This is nice. We're gonna get to talk about, I'm waiting for my people on YouTube to start coming in, but we're gonna get into some discussions today about securitization. And I just kind of chimed in on my Instagram to let y'all ride a little bit. But I wanted to talk about the importance of securitization and understanding how the monetary system works, because it is my contention that the monetary system is the underlying reason why everything happening the way that it's happening in the world today. And I think that it's not anything that you have to be that you have to look at in a negative term. You just need to understand it. Attempt to understand how it operates. Once you understand how it operates, then you can make a decision on whether or not you want to engage it or not. All right, but one of the things that one thing I was part of an organization, right, where we studied many different religions. And one of the first things we were told is that if you have not lived a religion, then you shouldn't be criticizing it or talking about it. Okay? But we took the time to study Islam. We took the time to study Hebrew. We took the time, Judaism. We took the time to study Christianity. Even if you look at the other three branches of government, of religion, you have with the Muslims, you have the Sufism, which is their mystical branch. With Christians, you have Christian Science. And then in Judaism, you have the Kabbalah. And studying all of those things required, first and foremost, for you to not to be biased or prejudiced, okay, and to have an open mind and look for the continuity between all the things. This is why on Sunday, when people come to my natural law hour on Sunday, the very first thing I did for them was give them the Kabbalion, which was to teach them about mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Those 7 principles underlie everything in manifest creation. It's even alluded to in your Bible under Proverbs 9:1, where it says, wisdom has built her house and she has established her 7 pillars. Wisdom is another name they use in the Bible for Mother Nature. Once again, that goes into the masculine and feminine concept of a Father God and a Mother Nature, or the yin and the yang that all of manifestation exists upon. That's why you have to understand polarity. There's that something has to resist, something has to give, and something has to receive. All these things are necessary in manifesting. So that's why masculine and feminine are universal principles. They exist on the mental, spiritual, and physical plane. So once you understand those things first, what are the principles? Now, when I do comparative religious study and I look into the religions, I can see the principle present in the religion. And now I understand the custom behind the religion or the rituals behind the religion, what they're attempting to do. All right, because that's the methodology that they're utilizing to attempt to utilize one of the 7 principles. Case in point, like prayer. Prayer, they tell you to pray at night before you go to bed. Well, it just so happens that at night before you go to bed, that's when the superconscious is open. And then any commands, if you've done it properly, they enter into the subconscious mind. Okay? That's what they tell you. Praying over your food. Praying over your food does have a actual cause and effect and associated with it. The actual vibratory frequencies do have a molecular effect on the food. We've seen this with my man with messages from water, the Japanese scientist who was able to discover through an electron microscope how words affect the molecular structure of water, just words. So there is something to this holy water concept. So there's credence behind a lot of things when you look at it scientifically, but first you have to understand what are the principles, the universal principles, and then we can dispel with a lot of conjecture and and people's opinions about things, because we start with something firmly established in nature. So we start with what are the natural laws first, and then from those natural laws we can do an examination. Sometimes just a purely just a purely brief look into it. And we can arrive at a conclusion fairly quickly, because as soon as you see something, like for instance, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Last night in our class, or Thursday in our trust class, somebody asked me to read their trust document. They had paid some money to have somebody prepare them a trust document. So we're reading it in front of the entire class. All right, so within the second paragraph, I immediately stopped, because it said the trustee herein declares, and I'm like, a trustee is not the one that declares a trust into existence. A settler does that. Okay, that is a principle of trust law, and you just violated a principle, so that just made this whole entire thing just useless. Okay, well, it's the same way in nature. If somebody tries to say something and it violates a principle of nature, you know that it doesn't have any basis in fact or whatsoever, that this person is just simply talking about something from the vantage point of their opinion. Let's talk about relationships. Okay, in relationships, what they're trying to blur the line between men and women, and trying to get women to act more masculine and men to act more effeminate, because they're destroying the battery. If you have a battery with a positive pole and a negative pole, the ions travel from one side and the other side is receptive. Well, that's the energy between a man and a woman. There's an energy exchange that creates like a battery-like effect. And when you distort those on both sides, you're just going to have chaos, because nature doesn't operate like that. All right, so there are roles for women and there are roles for men. That's not me saying it, that's nature saying it. A woman can never be a man and a man can never be a woman. Okay? That argument violates a natural law if you try to go against that. And you're going to have a 100% failure rate, and you will be exposed, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it, because nature favors balancement. This is why when you look at Lady Justice, she's blind, holding a sword with a scale. That's a representation of Mother Nature. That's why they made it a female and made her blind. Blind saying, I'm not a respecter of persons. Sword means vengeance will be exacted. You will not escape justice. It will be exacted. And the scales will balance. I don't care if you steal a piece of candy out of the store. Something is going to be taken out of your life to establish a balancement. Maybe not the same way, but you're going to have to compensate for that activity. That's the reason why they always give you full disclosure before they do anything. They got to account for that. Okay. Peace, God. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm liking the way this looks too. I'm liking how the lighting looks. It look good on YouTube. I'm liking this and everything. I got the little counter, I changed it up. Everybody talking about the camera's flipping too fast. So, I got the cameras flipping slowly now. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to do all of this and operate my system. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to start pre-recording a lot of shows too. Peace to the guys. Love your tie. Appreciate that. Yeah, this is how I'm gonna start coming on the air every day. For the start of the Joe Jones podcast, where we're gonna be talking about business, making money, securitization. How you can really use these negotiable instruments. Really use them. How would you really use a negotiable instrument? How would you monetize the debt? How would you monetize a promissory note? How would you monetize a bill of exchange? How would you monetize a bond? What are the steps in doing that? How can you generate, it's a game. The studio looks amazing. Your appearance is very nice. I appreciate that. I worked on it. We've been working on this very diligently, to get all of this together. If y'all watch it on YouTube, you even get a better look at it, of what's going on YouTube. And so that's a great point. I'm wondering, though, will the so-called elite pay for their evil in a way? First of all, who's to say they're evil? Who are you to constitute something as evil? Good and evil are subjective interpretation of events. Do you think it's evil when you eat chicken? Or you got some eggs and you boiling this baby's children or something? Do you look at that as evil? Okay, good and evil are subjective interpretation of events. It might be evil to you, but it might not be evil to them. Who are you to determine what's good and evil? I mean, this is how they think on the higher level too. You're calling something evil because it doesn't agree with you and what you think. But who are you to make that determination? You're not the judge. And you don't know the higher laws. And you don't live by them. So nobody's going to take into consideration, I'm just saying, on that level of what you're saying anyway, because they look at you as like, you ignorant. What is he talking about? He don't make nothing shake on this planet. He haven't even figured out who he is yet. And he's trying to judge us. Well, they thinking, they thinking like that. Good day, good day. Keep dressing dappy, my guy. Yeah, I'm gonna come in and start dressing dappy like this. We're gonna start. I'm trying to get my little flow, but I'm liking how the I'm liking the look on this thing right here. This is nice. Yeah, this is nice. I took the whole this room, that lighting that you see up there, man. We designed that ourselves. Well, I designed it. I had it put in. Lighting up there. I had the guys, when they did it professionally. It looks good. It looks real good. It looks real good in here. We're gonna be having some guests in here shortly. Yeah. Mine is the fox and the rabbit. No disrespect. Well, I'm not that disrespect. He said that's the important part that nobody's teaching. They teach you how to get it, but they don't teach you how to use it. I don't know what, the thing about it is how to, yeah, it's true. You know how to use it. A lot of people, you got to understand that I think what a lot of people in this space, what they forget, and this is me coming from doing this for a very long time. This wasn't put in place for your self-aggrandizement, for you to try to enrich yourself upon. And a lot of you come into this space try to do it, so you have the wrong mindset, which is why a lot of stuff never works for you, because that wasn't the intent and purpose of it. The intent and purpose of it was, first of all, to secure your freedom, because the system is a creditor-debtor system where it can be utilized to restrain your liberty. Debt can be utilized to restrain your liberty in a system that didn't have any money. So this particular process was put together to prevent that from happening. From that, y'all have interpreted things and tried to start buying cars and houses and pay utility bills and things like that. But it wasn't initially like that. That came from an expanded interpretation of things. And some things work and some things don't work, but nothing works in mass. Y'all have like 1-2% success rate in the things that you attempt to do. And when you still should be trying to, now with understanding security agreements and understanding securitization will help you greatly in a system that is debt-based. Because now you can begin to understand how to create value. Like we were running the ad like Mr. Brewer, where we're having a webinar on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Link is in the description. You should attend this because he is an actual individual who has done this. I've seen this. I've been around the man. I've seen the things. I've seen him travel the world and understand the mistakes that he's made as well as the successes that he's had. And he's taught me a lot and hanging around him. And the reason we were able to jive when I first met him is because I had studied secured party. So I understood the concept of value established by creating some sort of security interest in property. Okay, so I understood that. And so in meeting him, I got introduced to the creative ways that this could be done. The creative ways that this could be done. If anybody wants to look at an example of a creative way that securitization of assets could be accomplished creatively, there is a story. It's called The Story of Jonathan May. Jonathan May, and it's in the book Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. Now, if you're interested in securitization, this was an example of someone who actually took mineral assets that were still in the ground and was able to monetize bonds. And he went to the federal government to pay off the national debt. And then they locked him up, gave him, I think, 8 years in prison, and then stole his idea and create what is called today land banks. He's the author of what land banks are, allegedly. That's what he says. But what I would say is that if you watch, he writes an affidavit and he spells out exactly how he did everything. And I think a good test for individuals is to go over there and read what he did to monetize that and see if you can follow along and understand. That is how you measure your level of comprehension of whether or not you're getting this. Like, let me go over here and read what this dude did. And if I can understand what he did, I got it. If I can't, I need to go back and do some more study. I appreciate that. That's an important part that nobody's teaching. So I agree with you that nobody's teaching. I am a God under the Most High God. I know exactly who I am, and the power I have, I can question injustice. You can do whatever you want to do, but you're not judge and jury. You can, and good, and God said that I create good and evil. The reason he said that because there's not two powers in the universe, there's only one. There's not two powers in the universe. There's only one power in the universe, not two. Everything comes from the one. I hate to say that. How I'm talking to you right now, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm talking to you, this is how they think. This is why I'm speaking to you like this right now. I need to clarify. The reason I'm speaking to you like this, on the elite levels, their concept of good and evil is different from yours. Their moral code is different from yours, okay? They don't have a concept of good and evil. They have something like agreeable and disagreeable. Something is agreeable to them or is disagreeable to what's beneficial to themselves, all right? However, they don't classify things as good and evil. You take an O away from good, you get God. Add a D to evil, you get devil. You have the concept of God and the devil, and people talk about God and the devil as if the devil is on par with God. However, the devil, Lucifer, was an angel of God who got cast out of heaven because he didn't want to bow down to man. So, these are the things, these concepts you got in your mind about, we got to address it. If you want to talk about the elite, what I would suggest is that you study the way that they think. And then so you can understand. But if you coming at them with a concept, a religious concept, and then you haven't even been empowered by your religious concept, you haven't even been empowered by it, then you're not going to get much, you're not going to get too far with these people, They're not even going to pay no attention to you. So-called elites are killing some innocent children. Maybe there are good elites and there are bad elites too. It's not all elites. There are elites fighting to help you. Everybody's not evil on the elite level. That's something y'all need to stop too. Trying to make everybody. That means that's why a lot of you haven't made any money, because when you think about the elite, you think they all had to do something evil to acquire their wealth. So now you got this relationship with wealth as if it is something evil. So you keep repelling it from yourself. When wealth is not evil. Wealth is not evil. Wealth can be used to do a lot of good. It is the heart of the in person that has acquired the wealth who's good and evil. And there are people who get to an elite level who are evil, what you call evil, and there are people who get to the elite level and they're good. They're not all evil. There are factions of elite people battling with each other right now. Some people are parasitical. They want to live off the labor of human beings. Others want to enlighten you and tell you what your powers are and make the world into a place where everybody is in a state of realization of who they are. Everybody's not evil on the elite level. That right there is a weakness too, because it makes me think that you think that only evil has power and good has no power. Only the evil people have power. Is this thing, did I not plug that up right? Let's see. Okay, there it go. Add it back in. I had to plug my phone back up. So that is player setup with the attire and the backdrop. Yeah. It's nice. And, I like it. We worked on it. It's nice, I decorated it. Yours truly decorated it. So tell me if you like the decorations. I think that's a Masonic sword on the wall. I can't remember which one is. I think they both are Masonic swords on the wall. Not that I'm a Mason or anything like that, but, it's, and then behind me is a lot of law books. And over to the left of me are all my Black's Law dictionaries. You can't see them too much, but it's kind of like everything in here is like a study. I made it into like a study and do my live stream from a study. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Let's see what do you say? My concept is they need to suffer for their deeds and actions against humanity. They are poisoning the air, food, water, and all sorts of things. I don't think wealthy people are evil. I mean, but don't you keep buying all their goods and services? What is your how are you complicit in all of this? What is your accountability since you want to be judge and jury? How are you complicit in them? How are people out there, they keep putting out the bad food. Why you haven't grown your own food? I purposely moved right where I am in Dallas, right across the street from a farmer's market, because the lady who owns it over there, all the food comes directly from her farm she has. So that's where I get all my produce from her. Things have seeds in it and things like that. It haven't been sprayed with a lot of pesticides, and everything's homemade. Even the peanut butter she makes is homemade peanut butter. That's why I did that purposely. I made sure that I got access to food for myself. You can also put a well in the ground. It's $8,000. You can go and have a well built. And I don't understand why people don't do this anyway when they build their homes. Why you don't build your home and put it on a well? Well water is delicious water. It is some of the purest water you can drink. Water that comes out of the ground. You're crazy as hell. Dig you a well, get your, $8,000, $10,000. You can also make it where it can be connected to the city or your well too. You can have it function like that. Get your own electricity. Grow your own food. That's what you're supposed to do. You're looking for benefits and privileges, and they are making a profit by providing you convenience. Okay. And you're mad and you're trying to charge them with evil things, but they are providing a convenience for a massive amount of people when the people should be responsible for themselves. See, you're on a channel talking about sovereign mentality is what I'm hitting you with right now. And if you can't understand that, you're nothing more than a victim. You got to get out of that victim mindset shit. If you can change things, but it ain't going to happen from a victim mindset. And then trying to pass judgment on people. Judge not, lest ye be judged, because the judgment ye mete out will be meted out to you. That's Matthew 7:1. Jesus said that, you remember? Judge not, lest ye be judged. Because the judgment ye mete out will be meted out to you. Let he without sin cast the first stone. What makes you so righteous? What are you doing that is so righteous? Well, you can judge people and tell them what they deserve to happen to them. That's why they don't let you up. That's why they make sure they're going to keep y'all on the lower level, because it's that type of mentality right there that'll make you a devil. You'll become the devil when you get to the higher levels because the way you think, because you think you're right. That's called self-righteousness. Self-righteous people are just as evil as anybody else. What suggestion do you have to acquire a set of American jurisprudence? I don't know. Go to a estate sale in a wealthy neighborhood. That might land you some. That's my plan. I'm working on the land as we speak. Greetings, peace. Peace. Peace to God, people. That's my plan. Concept. These Chrome hearts. Oh, somebody know their glasses and everything. That's right. These are Chrome. These not Jock. Jock. I got a pair of Jock Mari just like the ones Kevin Samuels had. I didn't even know Kevin Samuels wore Jock Mari till I got me a pair, and then I realized I got the same pair he had. But I like my Chrome hearts better because the lenses are tinted. And I think they're a little bit more. Chrome heart makes some nice glasses, man. I like them better than Cartier. I like Chrome heart better than Cartier. I got me a couple of Cartiers too, but Chrome heart is nice. Chrome heart was managed to elevate themselves to the elite level too. I got to give them their props. It's a God has taught me right from wrong, and no logical person can agree that what's being done to the earth. Okay, well, you know what's right and wrong for you. That's all you can say, what's right and wrong for you. Listen, I'm just telling you what it is. You can keep thinking how you want to think. I'm just telling you, if you start elevating into any of the spaces of the people who run the planet, truly people, they understand what I just said. All right? That's all I'm saying to you. Your concept of right and wrong, that is yours, and I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm just telling you that right and wrong are subjective interpretation of events. That's all I'm saying. That is the truth. You may be able to sway a lot of people to your side and agree with you that some act is evil, but likewise, you're going to have a large group of people that's going to say it's not. It's not evil, that's all I'm saying. You're going to have it's a subjective interpretation of events. That's my plans. I'm working on the land. Now, you could do something like, is it evil? For instance, I'll give you an example. Let's take eating processed food. Processed food don't belong in the body, but people eat it anyway, okay? It doesn't kill them right off, but eventually they start getting all type of diseases and things of that nature. Now, okay, the body doesn't judge. Something either is or it is not. This either belongs in the body or it does not. If it does not belong in the body, there's going to be some sort of cause and effect associated with that. If it does belong in the body, there's a cause and effect associated with that. So it's not a respect of persons, and that's the same thing with saying there's only one power in the universe. So if evil exists in the universe, it could not have existed unless God created it. Nothing. The Muslims have a saying: nothing could exist if Allah had not created it. And this is why you got that verse in Isaiah where he says, "I make the light and the dark," and he said, what is it, in Isaiah? Is it Isaiah? What is it? Isaiah chapter 45:7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Okay, but you got to really understand, have an esoteric base to understand that statement. That's a true statement that he said, I create evil because everything comes from the one. There's one central power source to the universe. That point, what you're going to find, nobody is going to argue. No matter what religion, belief, or anything, science, everything is going to bound down, has pointed to one universal intelligence that's behind all manifest existence. whether you want to call it 0 point energy, triple darkness, chaos, whatever. You know, they give all kind of names and things for it, but essentially you're talking about what you like to call God or the source of all creation. So everybody is in agreement on that point, and everybody agrees that all that came from that one central source. So with that understanding, then this is a true statement. And they use Lord in situations, and they use God in other situations. The laws are what lord over everything in creation. They lord over everything in creation, the natural laws, which is how God created everything. Those are the laws that the Creator put in place to give structure to the universe and give order to it. That's how the universe has order, because there are laws that govern it. And who's the author of it? That would be the next question. And it could only be one. It couldn't be two creators because we'd have chaos. It was one source. I don't know if I'm wasting my time, trying to explain this like this, but, I think it is very important for people to understand that there are people who run the planet that have different concepts about spirituality than you do, and their concepts are governed by laws, okay? They're looking at laws. Karma is a law. That is why it's a Hindu term, karma. What goes around comes around. Or, you get back what you put out. But they have to give you an opportunity to make a decision. That's why they give you full disclosure on what they're going to do. And they tell you what's coming and how you're going to get access to it. It has to be voluntary. Let me tell you something. When we used to study this secure party information, that's all they used to talk about, how everything is voluntary. That's why when you're in court, I'm going to give you a secret. When you're in court, even if they have you in a room by yourself and there's no witnesses around and you got 20 U.S. Marshals in there, a whole bunch of attorneys, but ain't nobody in there on your side. Everybody in there is against you, and you're just there by yourself. No witnesses or anything. They still got to get you to decide. No one can. Fear is a decision. Fear is a decision. Fear is a decision. Courage is a decision too. That means it doesn't exist. Courage and fear are diametrically opposed to each other. But you can do a mental alchemical type of activity and switch from fear to courage just by making a decision. Everything is about, and then sometimes fear is going to be a tool that they use to get you to capitulate. But who you gave in to the fear. That's why everything is a test. The devil is here to test you. He's here to test you so you can find out about yourself, find out what your strengths and weaknesses are, so you can overcome them. It says, Express Trust Under the Common Law and Wise Concise, are those good books to start off learning with? Yeah, okay, that's a very good question. With the I started with Wise Concise Trustee Handbook. That's the first place I started when I started studying trust. It's been on the internet, circulating on the internet for a great number of years. Probably about 20-something years that document has been on the internet. And I started there, and I would read everything, the footnotes included. And from that document, that's how you come up with Express Trust Under the Common Law by Alfred Chandler, who's an attorney who was commissioned by the tax commissioner up in Massachusetts to do an investigation of what they term as voluntary associations. Now, when you read that document, you're going to see that they didn't like that term, it to be referred to as voluntary associations. But that is a classification that it will receive for tax purposes for business trusts. It's a good place to start also, because then it'll also give you some historical context as to what brought about the amendments to the tax code so they could accommodate these private trusts, because during that time they weren't taxed. And I think a lot of people, when they tell you that trust can't be taxed, they're thinking back to the vestige of that time when they weren't taxed. Just like there was a time where private citizens were not required to have a driver's license, okay? But that's old law. That is bad law now. It's not good. They amend laws, okay? They amend tax codes to accommodate things. Because the judiciary, they can't rule on something for the legislature if the legislature hadn't made a law that addresses it. Okay? So this is, you have to understand these things. But when you're going back and you're reading express trust under the common law, it gives you some very good historical context. It contrasts and juxtapose a private trust, a business trust against a corporation. Okay, you know, like corporations go to their deathbed in the throes. People form corporations. Average corporation dissolves probably the first 2 years, 50% of them. Okay, but it's not like that with trust because of one thing. In a trust business activity, the trustees are held to a higher standard than a CEO of a corporation. They call it a punctilious of an honor the most sensitive, or sometimes it's called the punctilious of an honor the most sincere. You'll see it talked about in different ways, but that's the level of fiduciary duty that is required of a trustee. And that is compared and contrasted with the duties of a CEO. And you see how successful these particular vehicles be. It's the most successful thing, private trust. There's a reason why all of the mortgages in the countries are being traded through private trust on Wall Street. They call them special purpose vehicles. They give them all kind of names, but they're private trust. All right. And yes, I think that early this year, a lot of people was saying you have until July 3rd, 2026 to put your private trust on the record, correct your status. Do you know any truth about that? I don't know. That is some of the most ridiculous sounding things. It almost sounds like an agent. Why would you want to put something private on the public record? Whoever is saying that is incompetent, or they're trying to do something nefarious or something like that. Because no, you don't put public and private don't mix. Why form a private trust if all you're going to do is give it over to the public? No, no, your indenture. Now there may be property that you have put. Like you may have to file a certificate of trust if you put some real estate in a private trust or something like that, but you're not putting anything, and you don't have to register anything or do anything like that. I've never encountered in any case law or anything that I've read over the years that would suggest that you need to register a trust. And now, unless you're going to do something with some securities, like with business and things like that in the public, yeah, maybe in a situation like that, I could see it. If you're talking about that, but I'm talking about just with the formation of a trust, it depends. I guess the answer is, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? I think that would be the best answer, because it does depend on what you're doing with it, because the private trust can do business in the public. And if you're dealing with securities, there may be some sort of registration required. So I could see some reasons for it happening, but I don't know what that was all about. It says, when the Fourth Amendment says the people are protected in their person, papers, houses, and effects, does the word person mean things such as a trust corp or etc.? Okay, this is the thing about the word person. You, like I, were told when you came through the door that you're not that person, that a person is a straw man, that a person is some sort of artificial entity, that a person is a corporation. Corporations are persons. Corporations are what are called artificial persons. And then human beings are called what are called natural persons. Now, how it works is that when you come into the public, okay, they have to be able to define conduct that you engage in when you come into a public regulated space. So it's going to start with some definition and defining terms. And then and from there, they're going to determine whether it is a natural person or an artificial person. From there, they're going to determine whether or not, what is the capacity of that particular person. From there, that capacity is going to get classified, and then that's going to determine rights, liabilities, duties, and remedies that are going to be afforded to that person due to some sort of conduct that they engaged in. Capacity is where you want to focus on, and what capacity are you going to be appearing in the public in. That is why when you structure your affairs in the private, it's arranged in such a way where you can control what kind of capacity you make your appearance in the public in, whether it's a beneficiary, a trustee, or or something like that. What capacity are you appearing in? That's what you're going to have to determine, and that's going to be largely based on conduct that you engage in, as well as how you structure your private affairs. When there's any type of engagement with the public, but what is it? It's a device that the public uses in order to determine rights, liabilities, and duties. When you look at the public, everything in the public operates off of a system, everything, and all of it has been monetized. The public is monetized, and it runs off procedures and systems. Okay, administrators, they follow a system. There's a system in how they make their determinations. Same thing like in an equity court. Equity court, they use maxims, equitable principles to decide things. And when you understand what the principles are and see how they apply them, you can't do anything but applaud them in the execution. This is, I think, when you really start to get to a point where you start to appreciate the law. You kind of understand principles. And I study equity mostly. I don't do like criminal law like that, anything, but I'm looking at equity a lot. And, I like the branch of equity. But a person is just a device used to determine rights, liabilities, and duties. The problem with a lot of you is that y'all don't understand the difference between public and private. That's the number one thing that's plaguing this space. And I keep on trying to say, but a lot of you think you do. The only thing is you know how to use the word private and you know the word public. You do not know the demarcation line that separates the two. And the U.S. Supreme Court is always drawing the line in the sand. Okay, but you have to learn what you have to learn what the line is, and then you have to learn how to respect it too. You can't disrespect, and a lot of y'all are filled with disrespect because you've been like charged up with all the government is evil and things like this. So you got this disposition about yourself where you're just really antagonistic. You're just disagreeable. Yeah, you're unreasonable. You just get into this type of space, and all those type of characteristics ain't going to help you in the public at all. And anything's going to be more of a detriment to you than anything. It's not going to help you. Acting like that, talking like that. You better approach this with intelligence and reason and articulation and study, and understand that it is a space for precision, not for you to come in with your own type of ideas of how things are supposed to go. Because you're one of the people. You gave a delegation of authority to a group of people, okay, and they are executing within the ambit of that delegation of authority. And when they are doing that, they have what are called plenary power. And you can't infringe on that delegation of authority except by the process of the vote, okay, of what we've given the ballot box. So I don't understand. I'm not understanding what I don't understand. Let me see. I'm not understanding. He says, but all of those things are outside of yourself. Fourth is saying they can't seize your body, arrest you without reason and warrant. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about amendments. You have anything to back that up? You're a public attorney. I can trust you. I don't know what they're talking about, and they got a discussion going on. Earlier this year, a lot of people were saying okay, I just read that. What is that? Express trust under the common law. Yeah, we just did that. Who suggested do you have to acquire a set? All right, that's my plans. I'm working. Okay, I answered all of that. Okay. I answered all of that. All right. Well, we're talking about securitization, and what I was going to say is, why is it important to understand securitization? I think it is a very, very good knowledge to have, because that's how the world functions. It's at the top of everything in the world. That's the game. That's the game played on a world stage. Bonds and project. And, it's just like you literally can create something from nothing, is my point. But you have to have the knowledge to do it with. It's going to require you to have some knowledge and opportunity, and to be able to identify an opportunity when it presents itself. It's just not you learn how to do this automatically, you got money. There are other elements that have to be introduced. You have collateral. What kind of collateral is it? Can you find someone willing to do business with you? But if you can make something attractive enough, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money. These are players at the top of the stage that are, man, the money that's exchanging hands on that level makes the Wall Street look ridiculous and everything. It's, but you need to learn the game. And the only way, what I'm doing is simply opening the door for you. Okay. And you're getting it at a bargain because, yes, we're charging $297, and that is cheap for what you're going to be introduced to. Okay. So that's what I can say on that. That's going to be on this Wednesday. I would strongly suggest that you go get, because seating is limited, and that you go over there and be in seats, because I will be in the seat myself. I haven't even conducted a webinar in a long time. I haven't conducted a webinar in a long time. This is the first time I'm doing a webinar in a long time. To the public. It's mostly, the students and so forth. Read the case law that interprets the Fourth Amendment. He's absolutely correct. The things that Juan Gault is saying right now, he's an attorney. He's telling the truth. Read the case law that interprets the Fourth Amendment. The judges are the interpreters of the law. See, look how they interpret the law. And then that's where you're going to get your answers from. But see, you have people in echo chambers who, when you tell them to read case law, they kind of frown up, or they don't think it's necessary, or they try to, in some kind of way, say that there's some sort of evil associated with it, or something to that effect. Okay, and while I do understand that there are certain rulings that may be bad decisions, and rulings get overturned all the time, and so forth, I don't think that is an indictment against the system that they put together. I think that the system that they put together is a good system. Are all the actors in the system good? No. Not all of them are not. But the system itself is a good system. And part of that system is they want to stay consistent in their decisions that they make. Okay, so they have something called stare decisis, to stand by things decided. Okay, and these are what are called controlling authorities, because they have to stay consistent. If you are able to identify some past ruling that they've made that is similar and much respect to what you presently have, then you can cite that, and you can say, hey, look, you ruled this way before, you need to rule this way again. Okay, that's why you see the attorneys, when they write motions and things of that nature, they have so many citations of authority following, their the declarations and the tenor of the document because of that fact. And you need to do the same thing. When you start getting into reading case law, you begin to understand things on a deeper level as well. It helps you start to understand, how things actually work. One of the things that, I just focus on really in reading case law is in the world of trust. And I can say that I've learned so much from just reading case law in various aspects of trust, and discovered all new terms, and like punctilious of an honor the most sensitive. I learned that from reading case law, reading case law. And, but it's a really, you learn a lot. You let the judges teach you. Don't let these echo chambers direct you. Why would you think anything is going to work in there? I'm going to tell you what it is. This is what it is. Okay, when you go into the courtroom, okay, there is this secret side of the court. Okay, I think this is what everybody kind of alludes to when they say you don't have jurisdiction over me and things like that. Now, I'm going to just explain it from when we first came into this 20 years ago. We weren't saying you don't have jurisdiction over me. People probably were some people saying it, but not in mass like they're saying it today. What they had circulating back then was what was called acceptance for value. Acceptance for value. And it was based off of you not arguing, because if you constitute an argument, that's a traverse, and now they can test that in a bench trial or a jury trial or some sort of fact-finding proceeding. So the key was not to argue, because that's not the issue. And there's something called a confession and avoidance, which is a old common law plea of confession and avoidance, where you actually confess to the facts, but you avoid the consequences by introducing other facts that make the consequences, null and void. All right, but the principle that everything was based on, acceptance for value, was on that principle, okay? That the true nature of the charge was commercial, okay? And that is what you were seeking to find out. Like for instance, in Georgia, you have OCGA 1711-1 and OCGA 1711-4, and that deals with liability on the defendant. Once he's been convicted or found guilty, they put a lien on all of his property. And likewise, if a attorney, he introduces an indictment, a prosecutor, and then the grand jury feels like it was malicious in some sort, he could possibly get arrested, all right, and face some sort of charge. This is what OCGA 1711-4. So those type of things, you start to see that there is some sort of debtor and creditor relationship that begins to be created. If there is a relationship of a debtor and a creditor, if a debtor-creditor relationship is created by the court, and there's some sort of evidence of debt can be sold, debt can be discounted. You have just created money, you have just created value, okay, that can be taken to the markets and sold, discount. You can't deny that. I understand how securitization works, okay? So there is a great possibility that the court is acting as a bank at times, because of the nature of the system today. We are not in a true Republican form of government. We're operating in this, what they like to term democracy. I just look at it as a system, a debt-based system, just a debt-based system that they're operating in. It's just a system that uses debt as money. And once you understand debt as money can be used, there's good debt and bad debt. You can leverage debt. You can exchange debt. You can do all kind of things. You can offset debt with other debt. There are a lot of different things you can do with it, and you can be creative with it, but you got to understand how that it's a game, as I look at it. It's a game. But money is created through the creation of debt. There is a document called the Financial Accounting Standards Board Statement number 95. If you look on page 21 under financial institutions and you read that paragraph, the bank in their disclosure letter, because I was reading this because this was back when I was doing real estate and I was trying to study securitization, and I was reading this letter from Vernon H. Wright. He was the president of the Securitization Council, and in his document, he was, just basically what they were afraid of whether or not they were able to de-recognize their assets off their balance sheets, and whether or not a true sale, when they transferred those assets, whether or not it constituted a true sale. But what was brought out was that the debtor or the obligee or the obligor retains certain rights. Okay, so and did this bundle of rights, and with that absent that one right, could they actually engage in a true sale? That was a big billion-dollar question for all of securitization. It was the biggest question ever. It was billions of dollars riding on the answer to that. And I got a lot of information from that document, anyway, hold on, what did he say? Are you saying you have graduated law school? Wasn't meant? Nah. He said, judges interpret laws made by legislators, Congress. To the best of my knowledge, they weren't delegated the authority to interpret the Constitution. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They're the defenders of the Constitution. What are you talking about? The Supreme Court of the United States of America are the interpreters of the Constitution. What are you talking about? You see, that's that crazy. This is why they think y'all crazy. This is why they think y'all like y'all lunatics. Y'all say some crazy lunatic type stuff, man. You really do, man. You say some crazy, alarming type of shit. I mean, it's like, what? Hey, man, I can see why they think some of y'all are like terrorists. They put you on the terrorist list. I can't. I can. You know, some of the things that y'all say, you think you don't have the authority. You don't think the Supreme Court has the authority to interpret the Constitution? Yeah, it will be recorded and you can purchase it at a later date. Yes, you will be able to do that. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. You're going to insult me. I must be doing something. Juan is not insulting you. You know, it's like I got into an argument with Juan, but you know, you got to listen, man. I'm telling y'all, study the law the right way. Then see whether or not there's room for your conspiracy theories. All right, why don't you start there? Why don't you say, look, I'm going to study, I'm going to learn this law. I'm going to learn the fundamentals of it. I'm going to learn the basics of it, the framework of it. I'm going to study its framework. Okay, then after I have mastered the framework, now I'm going to look at the framework and I'm going to think about the things that I've been told, that I've been indoctrinated with, and see whether or not that indoctrination fits inside of that framework. If it doesn't fit inside that framework, now I have to ask myself, what am I going to do with this information? Am I going to try to force myself to fit into the framework, or am I going to modify it so it can fit into, you know, this is what I'm saying. Because the public is not going to budge for you, all right? They're not budging for you. You're going to have to adapt to it. It doesn't adapt to you. That's all I'm saying. So I'm not saying, this is what I'm telling you to study securitization, because that's really what it all functions on. So if you really want to understand or get an eye into how things work, you know, yeah, then you should be studying securitization and monetization of instruments. I think, yes, I think that it definitely is a door you should walk through. But I only do that so you can understand how it really works. So now you can get back and look at what you're doing and seeing, does whatever it is that you've been taught, is there any basis for it? You know, that's all I'm trying to do. Nobody's trying to tell you that what you believe is right or wrong or anything like that. I'm just trying to show you how things work. And then once you see how it works, then you can say, okay, can I do what I was thinking I was going to do? Does it fit in that? It's a reality check is what it is. It's a reality check. Okay, are you aware of the King Cyrus Liberty System and how it was introduced to the West? No, I don't. What does that have to do with anything? Hold on, I'll find out. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but I'm gonna look at it real quick. Yes, I'm familiar with it, but there are actually two different things that people often mean when they say King Cyrus Liberty System. The historical Cyrus the Great, Cyrus II of Persia, whose policies after conquering Babylon in 539 BC are recorded in the Cyrus Cylinder. He permitted displaced people, including the Jewish exiles, to return to their homelands and rebuild their temples. His rule has often been cited as an early example of religious tolerance and imperial administration. The modern King Cyrus Liberty System, which circulates in private ordering, sovereignty, and alternative legal financial communities. This is not a recognized historical system from the Persian Empire. Rather, it is a contemporary framework that combines ideas about trust, private law, commercial processes, status, and personal sovereignty, while using King Cyrus as a symbolic figure of liberation. There is no evidence that this modern system originated with Cyrus himself. Oh, okay, so that's just a name for private ordering. King Cyrus Liberty System. If you question If your question is how the modern King Cyrus liberty system was introduced to the West, many researchers trace its spread through private trusts and common law seminar circuits in the United States during the late 20th century, alternative legal education communities discussing equity, trust, and private commerce, and internet forums, early websites, and later YouTube and social media, where the concept began intertwined with discussions about sovereignty, commercial law, and private ordering. There is no well-documented historical chain of custody showing that an ancient King Cyrus liberty system was preserved and then introduced into Western legal practice. Instead, the modern teachings appear to be a synthesis of various legal, historical, and philosophical concepts developed by contemporary teachers rather than a direct continuation of an ancient Persian legal system. In other words, y'all made this shit up, all right? And that's why I haven't came across it, because I read actual law, and I've never come across that term at any point, the Cyrus legal system, but that's something that y'all made up in the echo chambers. Y'all made it up in the echo chambers. I appreciate the $10. That's another thing. Yeah, can we get some donations going? I hate to sound like I'm a beggar or something, but dang. I need to get charged up. It'd be nice to see some colors. Appreciate the Saturday Live, my brother. You're welcome. You're welcome. And I hope y'all like the vibe and everything too. I've been really working on the vibe. I want to get this, this thing looking professional. The original liberty system is actually Eastern. The Mongols had it first. Then okay, well, let's see. Okay, you say, see, y'all make statements like this, but I just checked and see ain't no verification of nothing you saying. Let's see real quick. Yeah. That's an interesting historical thesis, and parts of it align with current scholarship, while other parts would need stronger documentary evidence. There is good evidence that many political and legal concepts commonly associated with the West have Eastern and Central Asian antecedents. For example, the Mongol Empire developed sophisticated administrative systems governing commerce, passports, diplomatic immunity, religious tolerance, and long-distance trade. Mongol governance spread legal and administrative concepts across Eurasia through the Yosa, or Jasak, imperial decrees, and the Ulus system of governance. Recent scholarship argued that the idea of liberty itself was not exclusively a Western invention. Instead, concepts related to liberty circulated across the Mongol Empire and other Afro-Eurasian societies centuries before the Enlightenment. Where I'd be more cautious is the specific sequence: Mongols, Diadachi empires, West. Chronologically, the Diadachi kingdoms, the successor states of Alexander the Great, existed from roughly 323 BCE to 30 BCE, whereas the Mongol Empire arose in the early 13th century CE under Genghis Khan. So the Diadachi predate the Mongols by about 1,500 years. That sequence can't be correct historically. If instead you're referring, where is it? I said, if instead you're referring to an Eastern administrative or commercial tradition that passed through the Achaemenid Persian Empire, Alexander, the Diadachi, later Hellenistic and Byzantine institutions, Islamic commercial practice, and eventually into medieval Europe, then that's much more plausible historical pathway. Historians have documented substantial transmission of legal, financial, and administrative practices across those civilizations. I'm interested in the source you're using when you say the original liberty system. Are you referring to a specific manuscript, a teaching lineage, the King Cyrus materials, or another historical text? If you can identify the source, I'd be happy to evaluate the historical evidence behind the lineage and compare it with the established academic record. Interesting. I think that's interesting. That's interesting. I appreciate this added. That's interesting. You were doing some research. And it said the Mongols birthed the Diadachi. That's impossible. AI is lying. No, it didn't lie. It says it's not plausible because they have the 1,500-year time frame between each other. So it's not plausible. It looked into the time when those empires existed, and it reached an intelligent conclusion that it's not plausible. Now it said that now if you can explain the connection over that expanse of time, then they'll take a look at it. All right, that's what it was saying. And stop saying AI. AI is not a sentient being. AI just synthesizes information. Of course, if the time frames don't match up, of course it's going to say, "Hey, look, this is not plausible." The plausibility of a connection between the two civilizations is not plausible because there's a 1,500 a year gap. Okay. Well, hey, well, I appreciate the 9 to the 9 power of 9. Okay, what we got over here? Let's see. Love you. I love you too. What's happening? All right. Oh, y'all just listening over here. Okay. They just listening on Instagram. What we got? Based on your comprehension, I might be a law student. I don't know. Why is he? Y'all like to come in here and just argue with the attorneys in the chat. Listen, I'm telling you, you would enjoy reading the law much more if you really did study it and understood how it functions and how it works. You would enjoy it a lot more. You would enjoy it more than what you get from the echo chambers. It's much more interesting than what the echo chambers is because you see how it works. You begin to understand how everything interconnects with each other, and then it becomes much more interesting. It's not interesting to you because a lot of you don't understand it. And so since you don't understand it, you choose to attack it instead of trying to understand it, because trying to understand it requires a lot of effort. And I already see that a lot of you don't like to put in effort because you like remedies that are very easy to understand, that you can just kind of do in just one day, like birth certificate authentication or a passport or something like that. Those are very easy processes. So that doesn't require any type of study. It just requires somebody to tell you what to do and you just go do it. If you're going to study the law, you got to do some reading. If you're not a person willing to read, look up words, understand principles, and underlie a lot of the things, you're going to be, it takes some time to get to that point too. It takes some time. It takes some time. You're not going to just do that just off the rip. Like yesterday, a guy called in. He wanted me to read this case where he's talking about, they cannot tax private citizens and so forth. Okay, but he didn't understand what good law meant. Okay, what does the term good law mean? Okay, meaning has the case been overturned? Has been modified? Is that ruling, can it still be referenced? But he didn't know what I was talking about. But he said he read that 5 times. It's like, so it's things like that. And that's what people are looking at. When you try to come off the street and just open up a law book and just sit there and just read something and you think that you understand what you just read, that is dangerous. Okay? That's dangerous. Me just reading it as much as I do, and I think that I have a very good foundation for understanding, meaning that now I'm not saying I understand everything that's being talked about, but I know the pathway to get comprehension in what I'm reading. I know how to get the comprehension from it if I need to. And I know what to look out for, seeing certain legal terms, and I need to see what that legal term is referencing. What is the purpose of a statute and its application, and how the judges interpreted the application of the statute, why that's important, and how it only works within a certain jurisdiction. You can't take case law from Texas and apply it over in Louisiana, or anything like. You can't do that. These are things that that you will see people in echo chambers doing when you first come into this space. And so you got to get to a point where you overcome that hurdle of understanding that, hey, the law has structure to it, okay? And you can't violate that structure. You can't violate the structure. And it almost teeters on not having respect for the law. And if you don't have respect for the law, I'm going to tell you it's not going to fare well for you. Let me just give you a quick message real quick. there's a lot. This is what I think separates me from a lot of the cats that are in this space. Because when I started learning this, I was doing it from inside of a jail cell. Okay. Limited access to books and materials and things like that. So when I did get access to the law library, I took it full advantage of it. I think they would give me like 3 hours in there. And I started off by starting with words, because I'm reading these books and there was so many words I didn't know the definition of, that I would just write them down. And then when I got to the law library, I'd run for a Black's Law Dictionary and I'd spend the entire time just writing the words down, because they wouldn't let us photocopy it. So I would make the paper into like, take some notebook paper, and lick it and make it into like little cue cards, section it off. And I'd write the definition on one side and the word on one side and the definition on the other. Because I understood that first thing I got to understand is these words. What do these words mean? And so I started with that until I had a big stack of words, and I would just kind of go through it every day. I'd wake up in the morning, just look at the word and read the other side and just go through my stack. And that took time to do, is what I'm trying to say. That's a process. I think that the only reason I did it because there was so much at stake. And that's what I think that a lot of people, they don't get a lot of clarity on a lot of things because they've never been put in a position where there's a lot at stake and they don't have any other choice. I think a lot of people have been put in that position where they have a lot at stake and they don't have any other choice. And when you get to that point where you have to depend on you, okay, and it's like your intelligence, your mind, because that's one of the only things you have to sharpen is your mind, and you don't have time to waste time, things like that, So coming from that environment and coming out into here, I retained a lot of those habits. I'm dependent on me. I didn't start this following a guru. I didn't start this listening to somebody else's interpretation of something, of what they thought something was. I did my own investigative study and reach for comprehension. And I started with trying to understand because there was so much at stake and I didn't know whether this was some true information or not. So I started with the fact that, okay, I can't put all my eggs in one basket because this might be some crazy stuff that is being told. So I'm going to make sure that I study these statutes and everything too, and the process and procedures are over here. So I was doing that as well. And I was looking for some sort of continuity between the two because I knew that all law rests on the same principles. So I understood history too, because after like studying The Clerk's Praxis by John Hall, I took about 6 weeks studying that. It's in 3 parts. The first part gives you the history, the second part gives you the statute, and the third part gives you like the case law, essentially. But in reading that, it gives you a lot of clarity when you start looking at statutes, and you can see that there are mechanisms, a lot. I mean, the way that they conduct criminal law today looks a lot like admiralty. They arrest you initially, they take you down, fingerprint you, you had to post bond, all that. All that it was in admiralty. And the machinery of the civil used to be utilized to exact punishment as well. And we have something still called a penal action that resembles, a criminal action. But and you got the statute merchant under Edward I when they started allowing people to pledge themselves for the repayment of the debt, and then the rise of the debtors' prisons and so forth. I mean, it makes sense to me that if we in a debt-based system, that, hey, they will resort back to debtors' prisons by creating, obligations on people. It makes sense to me. Why wouldn't you? It's not like there's no historical precedent that already had been in place. So that's the route that we used to take in commerce, that where you would approach it from a commercial lens, with this knowledge of what's going on. And that's the leverage that you would actually use in the courtroom. And that leverage coming by what I mean by question that you would ask, that had a constitutional basis behind it. These things, this was a technique that was utilized. It wasn't coming into the courtroom saying, you don't have jurisdiction over me, I'm not that person. That never sat well with me, because I always understood that the person was some sort of device that operated in the public. And since I had a good knowledge of public and private and how we didn't have any authority in that domain, we only had authority in our private domain, I understood those concepts early on. So even when I did look at the person And I kind of looked at it as what's called a transmitting utility, that it was some sort of bridge or some sort of conduit from the private over to the public, and which that's really what it is. It's some sort of bridge where they classify conduct in order to determine rights, liabilities, duties, and remedies that are going to be afforded to you. They got everything already classified. You know, it's set up in a structure. And the person is a conduit within that structure. I don't know if I am explaining this the correct way, but it's not what you're thinking. That it's something that you can just disavow and turn your back on, and then all of a sudden start declaring you don't have any jurisdiction over me. First of all, the law is regulating your conduct, so it's your conduct that got you into the situation in the first place. So your declaration is not going to get you out. What your conduct got you into. A thing is unbound the way it is bound. All right. So no. Let's see. So you're aware of his Lucius Brutus Constitution Republican Convention and how it works. What does that have to do with anything? Listen, let me tell you something. There's a public and a private. Even with all of this, there's a public and a private. The Constitution is in the public. It's under public law. Okay, it forms government and restrains government. Okay, I just need to know where my domain is. All right, what is the domain? That's what private ordering discusses, where your domain is. We can debate all day about different forms of government, where they derive from and things like that, but what does that have to do with your freedom? And what does that have to do with your domain where you can exercise authority right now? That's what I'm more interested in having a discussion about that. It says, so you're aware of the Lucius Brutus Constitutional Republic Convention and how it works. So we are running our ancient two-book set system that just keeps getting modified. Statutes are Eastern, not West. I don't know what all that means, but yes, I know that the law is built upon history and it's constantly being modified. It's being modernized. It's that way with Admiralty. Okay, it's modernized. They modernized it, but yeah, of course it is. Can't wait to join SBCU this week. I've been learning from all the wrong places. Continue doing God's work. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Can I get your advice? Index universal life insurance policy for private family trust. I mean, are you asking me to put a life insurance policy in a trust? I would think that would be advisable. I mean, once again, who's it going to benefit? I think that's an excellent way of preserving wealth. Excellent way of passing wealth on. So why did the American insert the German 1932 Commonwealth into the United States? Partial answer. So what? So what? What does that have to do with you and your private rights? Because as a private person, you're not a party to any of that anyway. So that's my question to you. Is like, the point of my question, I'm trying to really see if you understand public and private. That's what I'm kind of digging at you. Like, I'm trying to see, do you understand it? Because you can know a lot of things, but not have a good understanding of public and private, which is the most important thing. All law is either public or private. I got that from a Supreme Court justice. All law is either public or private. What have to do with free? Well, the truth is all law is public or private. What you're talking about is not going to set anybody free. That's not going to set anyone free. Unless you're trying to overthrow government. You trying to overthrow the government or something? That's what you're trying to do, overthrow the government. I'm just kind of curious. Let's see, it said generational wealth. Yeah. It said, wow, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not a reader, but I tried my advice. Okay. Yeah, you've enlightened my point of view and perception on things. Yeah, let me see. It says, What it has to do with freedom is the truth set you free thing. No, fix it. No case law. I don't see it being broke. What do you mean fix it? I don't think the system is broke. I don't think there's anything broke about it. I think what's broken is that there are a lot of people who haven't been educated on how the system actually operates. That's the problem. I don't think you can make a fair assessment of something in a state of ignorance. So I would reserve my comments on something until I made sure that I had a full, complete understanding of how things work. Once again, this is why we're doing this securities class on Sunday, because securitization underlies everything in the public, in their financial system. And you need to understand how that works and how that functions. And, you know, this gentleman, he has been doing this for a great deal of time, and I've seen him do some amazing things. So, and he knows what he's talking about. He's respected. A great many people, you know, come to him for information and advice. So I think, you know, him sharing it, I think you will get some value from it. I really do. It says, what he said, I'm gonna read it. What is broken is the information being hidden. If information never been exposed, that is being used against the people and is non-disclosure. There's nothing being hidden from you. Everything you need to know, you got access to. Everything you need to know, you got access to. What is it that you think you need to know? What is it that you think you need to know that you're not being given access to? The system is there and works well. It's just that we've not been educated to how to use it until now. I mean, that's all I'm saying. You know, you got to stop with this victim mindset. The victim mindset, listen, everybody. Once you understand how natural laws operate, you'll be deathly afraid of thinking negatively. You'll be deathly afraid of it. You know, you once you really understand how the laws work, you'll be so mindful when you think of something negative that immediately you'll correct yourself in your mind. Get that out of my mind. I'm whole, perfect, strong, powerful, love. You'll start saying some sort of affirmation from your to yourself to erase it from your mind, because you understand how the natural laws work so well that you understand that anything negative that you allow into your mind is going to manifest. It's the same thing with concentrating on what you don't want. Like when you constantly complain about white supremacy, okay, well, the universe, how it works is, well, it's going to interpret that as something that you want. So it's going to keep presenting to you circumstances that keep feeding the white supremacy mantra, right? Because it believes that's where you want to be. But you don't get rid of it by thinking about white supremacy. You get rid of it by thinking about what you want. Okay, well, what is it that you want? And that's what the universe responds to. See, that's a law that I'm describing. So once you understand how the law works, and you can't come in and think it's going to work any other kind of way, see, now you get to, you're crazy. You're insane, because you coming in thinking you can make the law work in a way that it doesn't work. How the mental laws work is like attracts like, okay? That's what all these wealthy people understand. They call it, they say we have the secrets of the absolute. All right, that absolute is their term for God. The secrets of the absolute. What are the secrets of God? The laws, the natural laws that he put in place. And you can only defeat nature when you obey her. You can make the laws bend to your will once you respect them, understand them, obey them, and now you can use them for your benefit. But that's a mental exercise. It starts with a mental exercise, which is really character development, because your character is a product of the habits you have, and the habits are a product of the way that you habitually think. So you got to change the way that you think. You have to address the way that you think if you want to take on a different vibratory frequency and start emitting it out into the universe. And then you're going to see conditions in your life start to change. So I could never be a Democrat. I could never be a Democrat. It's not because I'm some Uncle Tom or some type that thing like that. It's because of what I'm talking about right now. I can't sit here and beg for welfare. That's welfare and things like of that nature. When I know that the real thing that would help the most people is to teach them who they really are and how to use the gifts that they already have. Nobody is above. I don't care where you are, who you are. Nobody is below anybody. Everybody has the same potential. We were all given the same gifts. A mind in which to think. That was one of the most powerful gifts that you have been given. An imagination. What is your limitation? You do have a limitation. You do have a limitation. Your limitation, it's said that anything you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. So the limitation is the conceptualization. So if you can't conceptualize it, you can't manifest it. That's your limitation. If you can't see it clearly in your mind, what you want, and you're not able to retain that vision in your mind over an extended amount of time, okay, with clarity. This is the reason why they tell you to put up pictures everywhere and repeat stuff every day, because you're on the plane of time and space, and it takes things time to manifest. It goes through the same process as water. Water goes through solid, liquid, and gas. Well, thought goes through the same state. These are not different planes. They're just different vibratory rates of speed. We're talking about vibrations. We're talking about words. The power of words. That's what I'm getting at. And the power of the thought behind the word and the intention behind the thought behind the word. And the discipline that is required for you to manifest it. That's where everybody falls short. They fall short on the discipline aspect of it. Diet even play an important role in all of this. Thank you for refreshing about Kevin Trudeau. Praise, you're welcome. The Republic, not Republican. Amen. He says, well, the way I broke is the physics are off a little bit. What works in one situation don't work in another. For example, we are running systems designed for after you are in prison before. I don't know what that means. It takes time to read and understand the information. It does take time. It does take time. It takes a lot of time. Man, this thing looks so good on YouTube. It looks so good on YouTube. I love that lighting. I'm liking that lighting. That looks good. What we got? People can't comprehend these things. They're being uneducated. What about receiving VA benefits due to service disabilities? Is that the same category as food stamps? It's all a benefit and a privilege. Yes, it would be. It's a benefit. It's a benefit. That's what they call them, VA benefits. They call them that. What do you mean? They're all benefits. Those are benefits and privileges. Those are not rights. They can take them. All that means is they can take them away from you at any time. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't take away a right. You can take away a benefit and a privilege. I appreciate that. It said, well, the way it's broke, he said, we live in a microwave society. We want everything fast. We do want everything fast. That is a problem. That is a problem. That's definitely a problem. I'm waiting on y'all to give me a question now. I love the lighting. Y'all like the lighting too. I discovered this lighting. It's like, man, it's a nice, nice lighting right here. I said, okay. I got the lights turned off, but I got the soft lights going, and it gave a nice little. I can change the color of it too. I need to try to change the color of it and see if I can, because I give it a little darker hue. Look pretty nice. Yeah, we need these skills taught in school. Read the fine print and learn your rights. You can't play chess when you were taught checkers. That's correct. So what do you think about Whitney Bulger helping design the mental health system and other thousands of MK Ultra characters? Well, I don't think, if I remember correctly, I think Whitney Bulger, wasn't she that white lady that was, had all them people up there dressing alike? Let me see. Let me see if this is and they found her guilty, Whitney Bulger. Oh no. Wilkie Booker did not help design the mental health system. Instead, he was one of its victims. While in prison, he was an unwitting unwitting human subject given daily LSD doses in the CIA's MK Ultra mind control experiment. Rather than being an architect of these programs, notorious figures like Bulger and Unabomber Ted Kaczynski were exploited because the agency considered them disposable subjects. The notorious project, directed by CIA chemist Sidney Gottlieb, ultimately left a trail of shattered minds and ruined lives in its pursuit of behavioral engineering techniques. You can read more about this grim history of the mind control. Okay. All right, Whitney Bulger. Okay, so what was the question again? You asked me, what do I think about, what did you say? You said, what about, what did you ask me? Oh, yeah, what do you think about Whitney Bulger helping design? Well, he says he didn't help design thousands of MK Ultra. Are you trying to insinuate that they are not responsible, that the law of attraction is not responsible for where they're at or the situation that they found themselves in? Because I can most assuredly tell you that they are, because the law works with precision every time. Now, it may not be that they were thinking exactly how to be in that particular situation, that exact situation, but they were emitting a lot of vibratory frequencies of being a victim, It was in this victim mindset, so they ended up being a victim. Have you ever, I think back, if you think about Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G., they both met their untimely demise, but they all used to rap about death. Ready to die. I see death around the corner. They rapping that. So are you surprised they met their untimely demise? Because they manifested it. All the while, Eminem is saying, I am. Whoever you say, I am. I am. He got a rap on I am. He living like a king. I'm just saying, you do have the best looking studio on YouTube. I appreciate that. When I thought so too, I told my boy that. I said, man, I think our studio looks better than everybody's. I think our studio looks better than everybody's. I think it looks good, man. We put some work into this. We didn't spare any expense on the equipment. Even the carpet is expensive in here. We had professional lighting people come in and run everything, and it was we didn't spare any expense because we wanted it to be a top-notch, live. It says, you say the information is there to find, but how are you to know when you didn't know it exists in the first place, the non-disclosure? I mean, I put it like this: everything that you need to know will be presented to you at the right time when you're supposed to have it. I mean, have you been thinking about wanting to attract to yourself hidden information, all this time? It's like, I can't, only way I can explain it is this. I'm always standing with the natural laws. So, you are experiencing exactly what you want to experience right now. Whatever your station in life, whatever it is that's going on with you, what you know about, what you don't know about, is all a product of how you choose to think. You are the author of that. That is the only thing I can tell you. Why, that's all, that is the only explanation to everything. And until you accept that, your life will never change. You have to take on the mantle of godhood or goddesshood. You got to understand you're a god or a goddess. When I say that, I mean you are the creator of your circumstance. This is even preached in the Bible. Jesus said the same thing in Matthew 11:22-26. He said it constantly. He said, you can do these things and greater. They used to always say that to you, and you can. He said, if you tell this mountain to be cast into the ocean, but do not doubt it in your heart, but believe the things that you have said as if they have happened. You got to pay attention to that if they have, as they have happened part. Because he's right now telling you about the power of now, that there is no yesterday, there is no tomorrow. The only thing that exists is the eternal now. And that's how the universe operates from now. That's how it comprehends from now. Not I'm going to be, not I was, what I am now. And you declare, if you're going to declare anything, that's where you make the declaration. You make the declaration on who you are now. And you have to be able to embody that. And you have to be able to imbue it with emotion. You have to feel that that is who you are now. Anything you can conceive and believe, you can achieve. And they say Whitney Bulger is the mafia dude that was on the run for years from the feds. Okay. That's fake info. He helped design it with thousands of other mafia characters. Ancient Delphi was the first CIA, and they ran one of the first MK Ultra programs. As it turns out, behavior systems are what win all wars since 300 BC. What we are talking about is what German. What's your point? You're trying to, I don't understand the point. How is this applicable to what we're talking about? MK Ultra programs. Can you give a description of what the SBC and securitization process allows you to do? Can I make that dictation? It don't allow you to do anything but set off debt. That's what its intention is, to set off debt. It's a private banking system with an understanding of how the system operates, to set off debt. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't do any magic or nothing like that. It doesn't magically change your status or anything like that. It allows you to set off debt. That's the only thing it's ever done. Nothing else, all right? And that's because the entire system is kind of like creditor and debtor based, which is why I'm saying we're offering you a class on securitization so you can understand those relationships, so you can understand how debt is monetized. It is a very interesting subject to understand how the monetization of debt. That's essentially what it is. If you want to know how it's monetized, that'll be interesting. It'll be real interesting. If you do not believe, you surely won't be established. That's very true. Is that people don't comprehend. What's it saying right here? It says, what about the receipt? I just read that. I can't wait for the Wednesday webinar. Got this shit on, man. Yusuf, I know you're taking on food stamps. Oh, no, I already read that. Okay. If one were ready to prepare his equitable claim for the government taking of the gold, I have studied the constructive trust doctrine, Perry versus U.S. and other sources. Well, yeah, then go ahead and do it. If you feel that need to do that, you can establish it. I agree, because that's what people are doing when they try to set off debt. They're making a claim against the taking of the gold. They're saying, well, you took the gold away. But see, I still think that there are other things that people have to understand that, yeah, they took the gold, but then they created this territorial system, this Federal Reserve System that operates in a territorial jurisdiction. And you are invading their jurisdiction, trying to say that you have private rights and, y'all don't have a right to tax me and stuff like that. But it's you, the one that has come into their space. They didn't come into your space. You came into their space because their entire space was built for convenience. It's a big ass convenience store. So that's a benefit and a privilege. So you like the city for the convenience that it offers. You like the public for the convenience that it offers. Okay, the private doesn't offer the same convenience that the public offers. But you have to understand, you have to pay for that convenience. There's a tax associated with that convenience, and that convenience operates within a regulated space. Okay? Your private rights do not take precedent over that. And you have to understand that. That's all I'm saying to you. Okay, you got to understand that part. If you're going to understand anything about what's going on with the law, you're going to have to understand public and private. It starts with that. It starts, if there's not a firm understanding of that, everything else is going to be skewed. Everything else is going to be off track. Everything else is going to, everything else is going to be off track. If one were ready to ceiling edge lighting with random vertical highlights is Ritz. Oh yeah, it's nice. It's nice. We put it together nicely. Let's see what Whitney Bulger, thousand. Okay, he talking about, man. All right, y'all. How are you coming into this space? They came into our space. See, that's what I'm saying. That's what you think. That's what you think. I already know how y'all think. I know how you think. You know, you think they came into your space. No, they didn't come into your space. You came into their space. You went and got a social security number. You went and put your children in public school. You the one that went and bought a car and registered and did all of these things. You the one got electric, gas, water, and lights. And now you did all of these things. What you talking about? They came into your space. You came into theirs. No, I would start it on the federal level. I would start it on the federal level and a court of equity. That's what you're looking for. It's an equitable remedy. Private right does not supersede the public system of law. It doesn't. Can you tell me how to learn his natural laws? You start with the Kabbalion. You read the Egyptian Kabbalion, you can start there. That'll be a very good, I think that is probably the best thing you can read. It's coming to an understanding of how the Kabbalion works. Then from there, you know, you can see it in everything. You know, that's the key. They call it the key for a reason, because it helps you unlock the relationship of all religions on the planet. That's what it does. Have you ever read the State of Georgia versus Denver Allen transcript? It's pretty funny. I haven't read it. No. What's funny about it? So owning land and buying a home means I have to come into their space. Well, no, if you own your own land, you don't have to come into their space. Yeah, you have your own land. Get your own land, grow your own food. But if you have to go to the store, that's their space. You know, that's their space, yeah. If you have to go to the store, or if you have to buy anything from them, you have to buy some clothes from them. You get the delivery of your mail. You got running water. Those are all benefits and privileges. Those are not rights. Those are not rights. You know, you don't have right to those things. They're not rights. So owning land, peace to the God. Have you ever read the State of Georgia? No, I haven't read that. Let's see, what we got? Why are unalienable rights are stripped away on both sides of the public and private rights? I don't think any unalienable rights have been stripped away from anything. I'm gonna tell you what I think. I think that a lot of you are, you want your cake and eat it too. You act like children, okay? You don't wanna learn anything. You rather just keep pointing the finger and blaming instead of really identifying that it is you that is the one that's ignorant, okay? And there haven't been any rights stripped from you, okay? You haven't any rights stripped from you. Okay, that right there is a communist Marxist indoctrination that I'm hearing. That's what it is, tones of that stuff right here. This damn, like we're the proletariat and we're being manipulated by the bourgeoisie, or dominated by the bourgeoisie. This type of mindset, communist Marxist mindset kind of thinking. And if you notice in the chat, see how they got away from you are the author of your reality. So when I'm trying to talk about God-like things, they want to talk about demonistic, victim-like things. These are the things that you're contending with. And these are the people that you're going to have to separate yourself from. You can only separate yourself from these people. You cannot associate with them. I'm trying to tell you. You cannot associate with them. You can't associate with, they want to be victim-minded, you have to let them be in that camp. I can't sit here and be with a group of people, I'm sitting here saying that you're the creator of your reality, and then you keep on pumping victim shit at me. You know, it's like like in some kind of way you're trying to counteract that natural law is what it is. And that's on something only a devil would do. That's what devils do. Try to disprove God. You know, you're like a devil. You know, when we talk about natural laws, you're essentially talking about God. You're not going to disprove that. Many have tried. No one has succeeded. Going back through the annals of history. All right? So that's all I'm saying to you. It's like, no, you may not understand the order of operation of the law, but rest assured the law is behind all things. Numerology is a science. It's a science. I don't think it's the highest of sciences. The highest of sciences is mind. Is mind. But numerology is definitely a science. I mean, everything, it would have to be a science because the universe is in perfect order and it's structured. And mathematics is a universal language. So, yeah, it would stand to reason that there would be some sort of way of deciphering the language of the universe through numerology. That makes perfect sense to me. It says, if the people created the public, why didn't we provide the education to use it for us to add? No, you didn't create. You created the only duties that the government owes to you is to protect your borders, protect your liberty, and to protect your property. Okay, they gave out that public school system. That came about a little later on after you gave all the gold up in 1933 and they started the welfare system. That's when you gave it up. Under Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the institution of the New Deal program. That's the institution of this welfare system. It's a welfare system. You are dependent. After you make your name a business, can you use that business name to discharge all public debt? I don't know why you would do that. So I've never heard that before. No, I've never heard that before, what you're talking about. Discharge, form a name under a business and then discharge debt with it. I mean, you already have a corporate entity, the straw man, the all caps name that's attached to your social security number. Why would you need to do that? That don't even make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It makes no sense to me. Not in understanding how the theories behind the straw man theory goes. It doesn't align with any of it. Why would you even need to do that if your straw man is already a corporate created entity? I mean, you know, I'm just trying to reason. I don't understand that. And an epiphany on the other day that all contracts are soul binding because they are all tied to the extraction of our time and energy. That's a nice little assessment. I think that's very insightful. I think that's very insightful. Now, exact cake, no cake, and eat too. Seriously, they are stripped away. Yeah. My rights aren't stripped away. Yours might be stripped away, but mine are not, okay? I haven't experienced this stripping away of rights, as you say. I've been doing nothing but living my life to the fullest, and I just haven't experienced this that you're talking about, the stripping away of rights. I haven't experienced it. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't experienced. Explain to me what you mean. Be more precise. What rights in particular have been stripped away? Help me identify which one of my rights have been stripped away. I just want you to tell me that. About natural laws? No, I didn't see your question about natural laws. It said, can you go over the natural laws? I can't find it on SBC. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll go over them real quick. What's the next podcast episode going to be about? We got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We got a big lineup. We're going to be reviewing a lot of information. videos and so forth. We're going to be looking at some things, some of the things that people talk about, some of the doctrines, the things people believe in. We're going to be, obviously, we're going to be talking about business, like infinite banking, things of that nature. We're going to be having discussions about that, some creative finance techniques, real estate, and this is another thing with the securitization that ties into that. It's going to be some business. It's going to get heavily geared toward business because I want people to start understanding business, because it's like y'all standing around searching for some sort of like Bigfoot or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're letting your life pass by. Let's get back to life. You got locked, your rights were stripped away. Nah. Well, yeah, if you locked up, your rights are stripped away, but my rights aren't stripped away right now. And I can say that I put myself in that situation. I'm 100% take responsibility for that situation when it occurred to me, because I did put myself in that situation. Even though I was innocent of the charges, I still put myself in that situation. I can see how I put myself in that situation. Almost never say rights, you put yourself in book 2, UFOs. All right, y'all, look. Okay, I'm going to get on off now. I will be back tomorrow. We have a natural law class on SPC University, so if you're a member, we're going to have that. That's going to be on Sunday tomorrow. And I got to go real quick, but I will be back, and we will do this again. How y'all like the studio? Y'all like the studio? Studio's nice, huh? It's nice, yeah. It's nice. We did the damn thing. Anyway, keep it locked. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be back. Peace. I'll see y'all later.